You're sitting in a room full of people, laughter bouncing off the walls, conversations flowing easily around you. Someone asks you why you're so quiet, why you don't go out more, why you don't have a big group of friends like everyone else. You smile, give a small answer, and change the subject. But inside, there's a question you've carried for years. Why does being around people feel so draining while being alone feels strangely peaceful? If you've ever felt that way, you're not broken and you're not strange. There is a deeper reason why many empaths end up with very few friends, and by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what that reason is and why it's not a weakness but a sign of emotional maturity. Later, I'll also explain the one hidden pattern in empath friendships that silently pushes people away without you even realizing it. And once you see it, you'll never look at your social circle the same way again. Silence can feel heavy for you. When your phone is quiet, when no one checks in, when group chats move on without you, your mind starts asking uncomfortable questions. Did I do something wrong? Am I not interesting enough? Do people just not care? That silence presses on your chest because as an empath, you are deeply wired for connection. You notice small emotional shifts. You pick up on tone, on body language, on what people don't say. So when there's nothing to read, nothing to respond to, it can feel like rejection. But what feels like rejection is often just space, and space is where your power quietly grows. No contact, whether it's with friends who only reach out when they need something, or with people who slowly drift away, can feel like emotional withdrawal. Your nervous system is used to constant stimulation from others' feelings, their problems, their energy. When that suddenly stops, your body reacts almost like it's losing a familiar habit. That discomfort can trick you into thinking something is wrong, and that's when the urge to chase appears. You start thinking about sending a message just to check in, just to keep the connection alive, just to make sure you're not forgotten. But here's the truth that most people never tell you. The moment you chase someone to keep them in your life, you quietly teach them that your presence is negotiable. Your value is not measured by how many people stay. When you chase, your value is revealed by who stays when you stop. Chasing lowers your position because it flips the emotional balance. Instead of two people choosing each other, it becomes one person convincing and the other deciding. And when you are the one convincing, you slowly give away your self-respect piece by piece. You start accepting late replies, canceled plans, shallow conversations, and you tell yourself it's fine because at least they're still there. But deep down, you feel the imbalance, and that imbalance creates resentment, exhaustion, and quiet sadness that you often keep to yourself. Many empaths have fewer friends not because they are unlikable, but because they sense this imbalance faster than most people. You can feel when someone is present only in body but not in heart. You notice when your kindness is expected but not returned. You notice when conversations revolve around their problems while yours are brushed aside. And at some point, even if you don't say it out loud, something inside you pulls back. You start responding slower. You stop sharing as much. You become more selective with your time and energy. From the outside, it looks like you are drifting away from people. But in reality, you are drifting back to yourself. This is why silence is not your enemy, even though it feels uncomfortable at first. Silence shows you actually notices your absence. Silence reveals who reaches out without being reminded. Silence exposes which relationships were built on convenience and which were built on genuine care. That is why silence is powerful. It removes the noise that once distracted you from the truth. When you are always the one initiating, planning, checking in, and emotionally supporting, you never get to see what others would do if you simply stopped. Silence creates that space for truth to show itself. The hidden pattern I mentioned earlier is this. Many empaths give so much at the beginning of a friendship that they accidentally train people to give less. You become the listener, the problem solver, the one who remembers birthdays, the one who notices when someone is having a bad day. People quickly get used to that level of emotional labor, and because you rarely ask for the same in return, they assume you don't need it. Later, when you start feeling lonely or unsupported, it's not because people suddenly became careless. It's because the dynamic was built on you being the strong one from the very start. I'll explain later how to break that pattern without becoming cold or distant. Because you don't have to lose your kindness to protect your energy. You might look at others with big social circles and wonder if something is wrong with you. But having many friends and having deep, meaningful connections are not the same thing. Empaths often choose depth over quantity, even if that choice is unconscious at first. You would rather have one person who truly sees you than 10 people who only know the surface version of you. That preference naturally filters people out, and over time, your circle becomes smaller but more real. there is also another layer that most people overlook. When you start healing emotionally and becoming more aware of your own needs, your tolerance for one-sided relationships drops. Behaviors you once ignored start to feel uncomfortable. Jokes that once seemed harmless begin to feel disrespectful. Conversations that revolve only around gossip or negativity begin to feel empty. As you grow, your environment has to change too, and that often means some friendships fade away. It's not because you think you're better than others. It's because your nervous system is no longer willing to carry what it used to carry. So if you find yourself with fewer friends than you expected at this stage of your life, don't rush to label it as failure or social rejection. Sometimes it is simply the natural result of emotional clarity. And in the next part, we're going to talk about what actually happens in people's minds when you stop chasing, why some return and others disappear, and how you can tell the difference without losing your softness or your standards. When you step back from constantly reaching out, something important begins to happen beneath the surface, both in you and in the other person. At first, it feels unnatural, almost like you're doing something wrong. You might feel guilty, restless, or worried that you're being cold or distant. That reaction comes from habit, not from truth. You've trained yourself to maintain connection by effort, by checking in, by fixing the silence before it even has a chance to exist. So when you stop, your mind interprets it as danger. But psychologically, stepping back is not abandonment. It is a boundary that allows reality to show itself clearly. The human mind tends to value what feels scarce and uncertain. When someone is always available, always replying first, always making the effort, their presence starts to feel guaranteed. Not because people are cruel, but because familiarity reduces urgency. When you step back, you interrupt that pattern. The other person suddenly experiences a small gap where your energy used to be. They notice the missing messages, the quieting conversations that you once kept alive. And in that moment, they are forced to ask themselves a question they never had to ask before. Do I actually want this person in my life, or was I just used to them being there? This is where things begin to shift in their mind. Some people will feel curiosity first. They may wonder if you're busy, upset, or simply moving on. Others will feel a subtle discomfort because they were relying on your emotional labor without realizing it. When that support is no longer automatic, they begin to recognize its value. And then there are those who feel nothing at all, who continue their life exactly the same without noticing your absence. That silence is not punishment, it is information. Your value is revealed by who stays when you stop. When you remember that, stepping back becomes less about playing games and more about observing truth. Still, knowing this logically does not make the urge to text or call disappear. Your hands may still reach for your phone out of habit. Your mind may create stories about how one small message won't hurt, how it's better to keep the peace, how maybe they're just shy or distracted. To handle that urge, you need something more than willpower. You need structure. When the impulse to reach out appears, pause for a moment and name what you are actually feeling. Are you lonely, anxious, bored, or afraid of being forgotten? Once you identify the feeling, you separate it from the action. You begin to see that texting them is not really about them. It is about soothing your own discomfort. One practical step is to create a delay rule for yourself. When you feel the urge to send a message, tell yourself you will wait 24 hours, not forever, just one day. During that time, most impulses lose their intensity. What felt urgent in the moment often feels less important the next morning. This small pause gives your emotional brain time to calm down and allows your rational mind to step in. Your value is revealed by who stays when you stop, and that truth cannot be seen if you keep interrupting the silence before it has time to speak. Another step is to redirect your energy into something physical or creative the moment the urge appears. Go for a walk, clean your space, write down what you wish you could say to them in a private journal instead of sending it. This is not about suppressing your feelings. It is about giving those feelings a safe outlet that does not cost you your dignity. Over time, your nervous system learns that discomfort does not have to be solved by chasing connection. It can be processed in healthier ways that keep your self-respect intact. While you are stepping back from casing, it is important that you are not just sitting in silence waiting to see who notices. That would keep your life emotionally paused, centered around other people's reactions. Instead, this period should become a time where your focus shifts back to your own daily life. Ask yourself simple but powerful questions each morning. What will I do today that supports my growth? What will I do that brings me peace, not just distraction? What relationships in my life already feel balanced and mutual, and how can I invest more energy there? You may start focusing on your health, your work, your hobbies, or simply on rest if you have been emotionally exhausted for a long time. The goal is not to become busy to avoid feelings, but to rebuild a life where your sense of worth does not depend on who texts you back. Your value is revealed by who stays when you stop. And when your life is full of purpose and structure, you stop needing constant validation to feel secure. As you do this, something subtle but powerful changes in how you carry yourself. You become less reactive, less anxious about other people's moods, less eager to please. Others can feel that shift even if they cannot explain it. Some will respect you more. Some may even reach out more consistently because they now sense that your time and energy are no longer guaranteed. And some will drift away quietly, not because you pushed them, but because they were only connected to the version of you who was always available. This is why stepping back is not about manipulating outcomes. It is about allowing natural selection to take place in your social circle. It shows you who is capable of meeting you halfway and who is only comfortable receiving without giving. And in the next part, we are going to talk about what to do with that information, how to respond when people suddenly come back after your silence, and how to move forward with dignity when they don't. When you step back and allow silence to do its work, two outcomes usually appear. Either people return with renewed interest and effort, or they remain distant and continue their lives without reaching out. Both outcomes carry valuable information, and both require you to respond with clarity rather than emotion. If someone comes back after a period of silence, it can feel validating at first. You may feel relief, even excitement, because part of you was afraid they had forgotten you. But this is the moment where many empaths lose their progress. They become so grateful for the renewed attention that they immediately return to their old patterns. They reply instantly, they over-explain their absence. They try to make everything smooth again as if nothing happened. That reaction is understandable, but it quietly erases the lesson that silence was meant to teach. Instead, you need to slow the pace down. Just because someone returns does not mean the relationship is suddenly healthy or balanced. Watch their actions over time, not just their words in the first few messages. Are they consistent, or do they disappear again once they feel reassured that you are still available? Do they show curiosity about your life, or do conversations quickly return to being one-sided? Boundaries are not about pushing people away. They are about giving relationships a structure where respect can grow. You can respond warmly without giving everything back at once. Take your time to reply. Keep your schedule. Do not cancel your plans just because they suddenly want to meet. This is not punishment. This is you showing that your life has value and rhythm, and that being in it is a privilege, not a guarantee. Your value is revealed by who stays when you stop, and that includes how they behave after they return, not just the fact that they reached out. Set simple but clear standards for how you expect to be treated. You don't need dramatic speeches or confrontations. Your standards are shown through your behavior. If someone cancels plans repeatedly, you stop rearranging your life for them. If conversations remain shallow or one-sided, you gradually invest less emotional energy. Over time, people either rise to meet those standards or they fade away. Either way, you gain clarity without losing your dignity. Now, there is another possibility that can feel heavier. What if they don't come back at all? What if the silence stretches into weeks, then months, and nothing changes? This is where many people are tempted to break their own boundaries just to end the discomfort. But this is also where the deepest growth happens. Silence reveals truth either way. If someone can disappear from your life without any effort to reconnect, then their absence is not your loss. It is information that frees you from investing in a connection that was never as strong as you believed. Closure does not always come from a final conversation or a dramatic ending. Often, closure comes from acceptance. You accept that you showed up with sincerity. You accept that you gave the relationship a real chance. And you accept that the other person chose not to meet you at the same level. That acceptance may hurt, but it is cleaner and more peaceful than clinging to hope that keeps you emotionally stuck. Moving forward with dignity means you do not chase people for explanations that they have already given through their silence. You stop replaying every conversation in your mind, trying to find the exact moment things went wrong. Instead, you redirect that mental energy into building a life that feels stable and meaningful regardless of who comes or goes. Your value is revealed by who stays when you stop, and when you fully understand that, you stop seeing people's departures as personal failures and start seeing them as natural filters. Let's bring everything together quickly. You learn that stepping back is not cruelty, it is clarity. You saw that when you stopped chasing, people reveal their true level of interest and care. You understood that the urge to reach out often comes from your own discomfort, not from real necessity. And you discovered that both outcomes, whether people return or not, serve your growth if you respond with self-respect. Here is one clear action step you can take starting today. Choose one relationship in your life where you have been doing most of the emotional work. Not to punish that person, but to observe the dynamic honestly. For the next 2 weeks, stop initiating contact and stop overextending yourself. Use that time to focus on your own routine, your health, your interests, and the people who already show up for you consistently. Watch what happens without interfering. Silence reveals truth either way, and this small experiment will teach you more than any advice ever could. You are not meant to beg for attention, chase affection, or shrink yourself to keep people comfortable. You are allowed to be kind and still have boundaries. You are allowed to care deeply and still expect reciprocity. And you are allowed to walk away from connections that only survive because of your constant effort. Your value is revealed by who stays when you stop, and the people who truly belong in your life will not require you to abandon your self-respect just to keep them there. As you continue to grow emotionally, you may notice that your circle becomes smaller but more genuine. That is not loneliness. That is refinement. It means you are no longer measuring your worth by numbers, but by the quality of the energy around you. Stay patient with yourself during this process, because unlearning the habit of chasing and learning the habit of standing still with confidence takes time. If this message resonated with you and you want to understand how to build deeper, more secure connections without losing your empathy, watch the next video where we talk about how emotionally strong people create relationships that feel safe, balanced, and truly mutual.